loved ones. For those that have not met me, I see a few new faces here tonight. I'm Lori Staggs. I'm the Together Towards Transplant Program Coordinator and the host of tonight's seminar on self-advocacy. Typically how the meetings are ran, we do a presentation and then have a guest speaker here tonight, and then we'll break into our transplant circles. But those who are post-transplant, if you want to follow Pam, you guys have the 15 minutes that I'm doing my presentation to go and connect with each other, talk about your post-transplant journeys. Talk about our upcoming seminars. Our next one is in Northern Kentucky at the Erlanger Library. Typically it's the third Thursday of every month. They are having a concert there on July 16th, so we moved the seminar to July 23rd, and that's going to be on finding your donor. The next meeting here is the first Thursday in August, which is August 6th, and we'll be talking about the realities of the journey. So, when you hear the term self-advocacy, you might think it simply means speaking up, but it's really more than that. Self-advocacy is about taking an active role in your own healthcare, asking questions when you don't understand something, sharing your concerns, and making sure your voice is heard. It's not about being difficult, it's about being informed, involved, and confident. Think of yourself kind of as the CEO of your healthcare team. Your doctors are the experts, but you're the experts on your life. The best person, oh, you can go back over. Sorry. The best person to advocate for you is you. Family can support you, friends can encourage you, doctors can guide you. But you know how you truly feel. If something doesn't feel right, speak up. Don't wait until your next appointment. Self-advocacy is really the ability to speak up for yourself. Tell providers when something changes. Tell them when something feels off. Identify your needs, whether that's transportation, emotional support, financial concerns. And then we also want you to clearly communicate your needs so that others can support you. People cannot help you if they don't know what you need. So why is self-advocacy important? It provides better medical care. Your doctors need as much information as possible to effectively treat you. So your doctors are only going to know what you tell them. It also empowers and enables support. Most people's family, friends, and people want to help, but can only do so if you're clear about what you need. So an example of this would be, instead of saying, I need help, simply say, can you drive me to my appointment on Tuesday? People respond better to specific requests. Also, it ensures your needs are addressed. No one knows your body, your emotions, and your mental stressors like you. So if you have fatigue, anxiety, medication side effects, all those matter, and if we don't speak up about them, nobody knows that you're having some concerns. So self-advocacy and your medical team. Knowledge is power, so go in there knowing your numbers, knowing your medicines. Prepare ahead of time. Write down your questions and things you want to discuss, whether that's in a notebook, using the notepad on your phone. For example, when I go and see my oncologist once a year, he probably hates when he sees me walking through that door because I have the list of all my questions, because I know when I get in front of him, he'll start talking, and I'm gonna forget everything that I wanted to ask and tell him about. So take those notes with you. Ask questions and don't leave with unanswered questions. Take notes. Don't be afraid to say, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're telling me. Can you explain that in everyday terms? remove the medical jargon, because we aren't all familiar with that jargon, so don't be afraid to self-advocate for yourself. Take initiative. Don't assume the doctor knows what's on your mind, and just, if you can, take a trusted person to support you as well, because sometimes 2 ears are better than 1 set of ears. So some talking points to go over with your medical team. You know, these are just some general questions. How am I doing? What are my options? What is our plan? What do you recommend? What will happen if I don't do this? I have concerns. Can we talk about this further? And I don't remember hearing you say this. Can you say it again? And it's really important. This is why we have it down in bold. Before you leave, restate the steps that you agreed upon. Because you may forget something. I've often restated my medical plan, and the physician has said, oh wait, we forgot to talk about this. Don't be afraid to speak up. I can't stress this enough, but it's not black and white. There are no protocols in kidney transplant, no standard care plan that applies to every person. It's important that you communicate openly and honestly with everyone on your medical team. Every transplant journey is different. There's not 2 identical transplant journeys in this room. Every transplant center has a different set of protocols. Every patient has different issues and different health issues. Just because something happened to someone in this room, on a Facebook group, doesn't mean it'll happen exactly the same for you. You know, one person may be on this medicine and another person on this medicine. It's okay for you to ask your physician, why am I not on this medication? But don't just assume because Gary is on this medication that Norman's gonna be on this medication. It doesn't work like that, because no transplant journey is the same. It's not black and white. So I wanna go over a scenario and get some input from you guys. So the scenario is your doctor or transplant team have asked you to make an appointment. You call the doctor's office and are told by the receptionist that the next available appointment is in 2 months. What are you guys gonna do? Tell me how you're gonna self-advocate for yourself. Are you just gonna take the appointment for 2 months?
No, you would say, I am actively trying to get listed on the transplant list, and usually they will move the appointment closer. They'll fit you in fairly quickly. I had this happen to me a lot when I was trying to get listed.
What was their reaction when you told them, I need a sooner appointment?
They were pretty shocked, especially for me, because my age is I'm so young. So they were just shocked by it initially, and they're like, oh, well, let me go talk to the doctor to see if we can fit you in sooner, rather than having to wait that 2-month period for your appointment.
Thank you, Cindy, for self-advocating for yourself, but you're exactly right. We want to tell them, no, I'm on the transplant list. We want to make sure the receptionist knows that you're on the transplant list. You can also call your nephrologist or transplant coordinator and let them know, hey, this doctor's pushing back on me and I don't think I should wait this long. Ask them if they can call on your behalf. It works. And if all else fails, take a deep breath and just keep advocating for yourself. Is there anybody else who wants to share a story or anything about how they self-advocated? Norman, I saw your hand go up. Give me a minute.
I would just ask if there was another doctor in the office that could see me sooner.
Perfect. That's a great option too. Is there another doctor that's in your office that can see me sooner? Anyone else want to share? Oh, I see Michelle at elbowing John to share.
Well, a couple of things. at my last, dental appointment, they said, oh, we're short on staff. We're not gonna do your tooth cleaning for, 8 months instead of the usual 6 months. And they said, well, in 6 months, I'm due up to get recertified for being on the transplant list. So they call it, talked with the dentist, and the dentist said, well, we could wake up where normally I see you when you get your teeth cleaned, but we could do it 2 months sooner and get the x-rays we need. And then if you're still needing it, still needing the paperwork, take care of that, and then we can have you with the hygienist when they're available. No, this is just like.
You're fine.
The other thing he did, he had some work for heart paperwork and stuff, and ended up seeing a nurse practitioner instead of the doctor to get some things expedited.
Perfect solution. Yeah, it goes exactly kind of what Norma was saying. Is there a nurse practitioner? Is there another physician in the office that can see me sooner? If we don't speak up, the receptionist is not gonna know that we need to be seen sooner. So definitely always self-advocate for yourself. The worst they can do.
Exactly what is on the tight timeline.
Exactly. You want to make sure that, they know you're on the timeline. They know that you're trying to get on the transplant list, or you are actively on the transplant list. Those are things you want to communicate, because most offices probably don't have it flagged in your chart that you're on the transplant list. So letting them know ahead of time that, 2 months might work for the average Joe, but not in this case. All right, so self-advocacy and your transplant team. This is where I hate to tell people this. We all want news on what's going on, but the reality of it is you're probably not gonna receive weekly calls from your coordinator. They haven't forgotten about you, but they just don't provide those weekly updates. I wish there was like a pizza tracker where you could log into my chart and see what's going on when you're on the active transplant list or going through testing. But in reality, we don't have that available. But you can always call or send an email with questions or concerns. You can say simply, checking in to see if there's anything you need from me, or wanted to give you an update about my doctor's appointment, or even, are there any updates that's going on with my transplant journey? Anything coming up that I should be aware of? I read this and wanted to see if it applied to me. Those are all good ways to communicate with the transplant coordinator, and typically they will respond back to your questions in your emails. Don't just say, I'll wait till my next appointment. If there's a question that you want answers to, call or send messages, emails, or the messages through my chart. Those are the ways you want to self-advocate for yourself, because again, if you're staying silent, nobody knows that you have this concern or need help with something. So self-advocacy in your donor search. Don't try to do it on your own. Identify your needs and let other people help you. That's why we have the kidney donor champions. They can help you navigate things. They can speak up for you at doctor's appointments. I do it for my mom. My mom is basically deaf, and she tries to go to appointments by herself, and it fails every time, because we're like, well, what did they say? I don't know, I'm just gonna read it in my chart later, then I can text you guys what it says. No. We let that happen for a while, and we put a stop to it, because she needed somebody to advocate for her why she was there. At one time, she was on 4 blood pressure medications, and I said, Mom, why are you taking 4? I don't know, well, this physician told me I needed it, and I saw the nurse practitioner in that office, and they wrote me one. So having another person with you, whether that's a family member or friends, is good. People want to help, but can only help if you're clear about what you need. Any questions over the self-advocacy? Any comments? Are you guys awake? Just teasing, I know it's a holiday week.
This is a dumb question, I guess, what that issue with your mom, was that before they had electronic records or after?
Of her getting on Form F?
Yeah.
After.
One aspect of, when to call is if you were expecting to find something out or get feedback in 2 weeks, and 3.5 weeks has gone by, then I think give a poke. Sometimes you find the question has gotten lost or whatever, and nothing is going to happen if you didn't poke.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. You're nicer than I am because I give them 24 hours past the deadline they told me, and then I'm sending a message or I'm calling.
Well, tell the story about, real quick about,
Yeah, we have
you're
time.
just getting on the train, getting shipped or whatever.
When our my nephrologist first said, okay, it's time, we're gonna put in recommendation to get on the transplant list. This takes a little while, maybe take 3 weeks, well, but it was more than 3 weeks for a bit. I called my nephrologist's office, and they went and called in, and they said, they said they never saw a fax. Kind of really worried about fax systems at any time, but, so then they, got back, pretty quick from that point to tell me, okay, well, in 2 months, we have an opening scheduled. I said, well, I already just lost a month. Can't we do anything better?
Good for you for speaking up and asking that
And they
question.
came up with an alternate person to give me the appointment.
Good. Good for you for asking that. Because otherwise you would have been waiting those 2 months. And like I said, it never hurts to ask. All right, who else wants to share a story about when they self-advocated for themselves or even for a loved one? Oh, I know somebody in this room has a story.
Well, I won't. I was my son's team champion. I guess a big thing for me was, even though Andrew was healthy and could do all the appointments, and do all the appointments now that he's had his transplant for a year and a half. Just being there is that second set of years. You know, I would always say, is it okay for me to go? Is it okay for me to ask questions that you didn't ask, so that I didn't step on any toes, but just so that we had all our bases covered. And, you know, I'd keep a list of questions I had, and, you know, we just had an appointment the other day, and, you know, asked him a couple questions, and we took them with him, and, you know, everything was covered, and, but yeah, just being an extra set of ears and eyes is really important to, you know, making sure things do get answered and questions get asked.
Thanks, Lori, for sharing that. See, that's why you guys are helping me get my 11,000 steps in a day. Making me run across the room. Norman.
Not for kidney transplant. I had my heart surgery. We planned it out a few weeks. And I just wrote, every time I thought of a question, I just wrote it on my phone.
Perfect.
So then when I went to the doctor, I had all
questions, it allows you to think twice too, and while you're listening to the physician telling you everything, you're looking at your questions as well, thinking, okay, he answered that, I don't have to ask that question. She answered this one too, I don't have to voice that question. But when you have that list, there's probably 1 or 2 questions that they didn't address that you can ask. So that's perfect that you were able to plan ahead of time and have that list of questions available. Do you know if post-transplant's on their way?
They're on their way, yeah,
Okay.
they're finishing up.
We'll give them a few more minutes to come in. Holly.
Hi. Hi. I'm a champion for Phyllis Gregory, who is my line dance teacher. She's not here tonight, but I wanted to say to those of you who may be in the room who need kidney, that this is sort of a hard pill to swallow. Like you have kidney disease or you have some sort of renal failure, and all of a sudden you're being told that you have to step up and you have to be assertive and you have to be aggressive and get those appointments and do everything yourself, and it's like, shit, I just got diagnosed with this disease and I can't do this. Like, I'm in the forest, I can't see the trees for the forest. I mean, it's really hard to be the person who is the patient. And then to learn this, these are hard lessons sometimes that we learn off the list, but to learn that you have to be your best advocate. But what I will tell you, and we've been working for a year to get Phyllis a kidney, and we've heard a lot of success stories, and we've had a couple of nibbles ourselves, and we have had some good successes, but we don't have the kidney yet. But what I will tell you is that the champions in your life, the people who, friends, loved ones, anybody who can help you, do some of these things when you don't feel like you really want to do it yourself. These people will help you because they love you. And I also want to say that you can never, when you're looking for a kidney, you can never underestimate just telling people your story. And we've learned as champions for Phyllis that we tell her story whenever we can, because we've had people come out of the woodwork who you would never imagine might have a kidney. And you just never know who you're going to reach through talking with somebody. Somebody's going to love you and they're going to offer you a kidney. We believe that. We're not going to ever give up.
No, we're not. That's absolutely the truth right there. Thank you for sharing that, Holly. But before I bring up our live speaker tonight, our guest speaker, Stacy Kessler, who's one of our living donors, I'm going to go ahead and separate the room for our post-transplant circles before she starts sharing her story about being a living donor. So those of you who are actively going through testing or on the list, if you want to be on this side of the room, those of you who are caregivers or kidney donor champions, if you want to go to the other side of the room, this gives you guys time to connect after our guest speaker's presentation. Just talk about the journey that you're on. You can share ideas. It's a completely safe space for everyone. So if you guys just want to separate. Yeah, I think if you're post-transplant, if you want to go to a table that is those waiting on kidneys, because you guys can share some of those emotions on the journey of waiting. For those waiting around, so you're in I felt it. I'm gonna make Cindy. Alright, so before we go into our transplant circles, I just want to welcome Stacy Kessler, who was gracious enough to be a living donor last August, and she's just going to share her story and what made her decide to be a donor. Thank you.
All right, so I donated a kidney August 13th of last year, but my story actually starts way before that, 8 years before that actually, in 2017. I was driving down the road and I saw a sign that said a kidney for Ann. And I just felt this like instant tug on my heart, like, oh my gosh, I think God wants me to donate a kidney. And I was absolutely terrified, to be honest. So I sort of shoved that down and put it on a shelf and just went on my merry way. But every time I heard anything about a kidney or anything about organ donation, like I had that same tug on my heart. And I just figured, I don't know, maybe God's just preparing me because someday a loved one is going to need a kidney and I will be able to donate, I'll be a match. But at the beginning of 2024, it finally felt like this wasn't a someday thing, this was a do it now thing. And I was still pretty scared about it. I hadn't looked into it at all. I just, had my own misconceptions about it. So my first step that I took was finding a couple people who had donated to talk to. So I talked to 2 women who had donated a few years prior, and they just told me their story and how glad they were that they did it and what the realities of it looked like. And for me, everything that I was afraid of, I realized was just an unfounded fear. Like, there wasn't anything that was on my mind that really should be holding me back. It was all false misconceptions and things that I had blown out of proportion just because they were an unknown and I never looked into them. So I just had this peace and this resolve, like, yeah, I think I'm gonna look into doing this. So I went through my screening at Christ Hospital and I got approved, but I still didn't know where my kidney was supposed to go. But as they walked me through the options and they talked about unpaired altruistic donation, I just felt like that was what I was supposed to do. I just loved the idea that there might be someone out there that had someone willing to donate on their behalf that wasn't a match, and they were just waiting for someone like me to start the chain and make that surgery happen. Unfortunately, because of different circumstances and timings and restrictions after surgery, I actually wasn't able to donate for a full year, and it was actually like 4 days beyond the year mark where your screening results expire. So I went through screening again, but I just think of it as like the world's most thorough physical. Is actually you learn so much about yourself and your health, and I spent that year just being able to make myself even healthier, make some lifestyle changes like already stopping to take NSAIDs and things like that. And I just grew in confidence that this was something I was gonna do. And so when I finally got the call that my surgery was scheduled, it was about a month out, and I was pretty surprised at like the emotions that I felt. Actually, the first emotion I felt was just like gratitude that I was healthy enough to do this, that this was something that God had put on my heart, and excitement that like I get to share the love of Jesus in this tangible way, and that I could hopefully better someone's life. Going into the surgery, it was the first time I had ever had a hospital stay. It was my first surgery, so I really didn't know what to expect. And I won't downplay, the recovery. It was hard. I did need help, but honestly, without knowing what to expect, it was actually easier and faster than what I expected. I think it was within 2 weeks I was like walking 10,000 steps again, and now I'm back to like running and hiking, and honestly I don't feel a difference in my daily life. I don't miss ibuprofen, all the things that I was worried about before, again, just non-issues. I think, there was a lot that I had to process through during that time. If I never found out who got my kidney, does that matter to me? If I find out who got my kidney and they didn't have a positive outcome, how would I feel about that? And at the end of the day, I was just resolved that I knew that this was something that I wanted to do, and it didn't, that was my gift, and the result of that wouldn't change my decision whatsoever. I still would do it regardless. I still don't know who received my kidney, how they're doing, none of that, and hopefully I'll get to meet them one day and hear their story, but if not, that's okay too. I know that there were 2 recipients in the chain, and I was one donor and there was another donor, so that's just amazing to me. It's the thing in my life I'm probably most proud of, and I always say if I had another kidney I would. I actually came to the off the list gala last year, and I was looking at the cards on the table and I was like, oh, it may have been Phyllis, someone was here for Phyllis, and I was like reading Phyllis's card, I was like, oh, maybe I'll donate a kidney to Phyllis, and my brother was like, you already donated your extra kidney. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. So what a transformation from like being terrified, avoiding even looking into it for 7 years until I actually looked into it, to feeling that way. So I guess, you know, my encouragement for anyone in the room thinking about donating that's having any concerns. For me, what the hardest part was not the surgery, was not the recovery, was not the mental stuff about what would happen afterwards. It was actually just the fear of the unknown and like not being willing to take steps because of that, or even ask questions because of that. And if you're someone who is actively seeking a kidney for yourself or someone else, like you never know what seeds you're gonna plant with your signs or with your posts or with sharing your story. Like that seed might be something that gets someone to say yes years and years later for someone else, and maybe someone planted a seed years ago that then they're gonna be a yes for you, and maybe someone comes around a whole lot faster than I did, and they're a yes in a couple months. You know, they just had to work through some stuff. So, you know, just I know the journey is probably very hard and it feels like a lot of roadblocks, but just know people are listening, and it just takes some people longer to come around like me. So, yeah, and I'm happy to be a resource and answer questions now or down the road if anyone has any questions about donating. So, that's it.
Thanks, Avery, for turning on the mic. Thank you, Stacy, for sharing your story. I hope that you guys feel that, you know, there is someone out there who's completely altruistic, doesn't know you at all, that's willing to donate a kidney on your behalf and to you. What questions do you guys have for Stacy while she's here? This is the quietest I've ever seen this group.
I got a comment. You're saying that if you had an extra one, that you would do it again. That's exactly how my donor was. She said, she calls me Pee-wee. I hate it, but it's okay. She goes, yeah. She said, I just kept feeling this tap on my shoulder. And she goes, and I would push it away and go, I don't have time right now, I have a deadline. And it would just keep coming to her. And she said, I finally just took, it's a leap of faith, is what it really is. And she said, and I just took it. Her husband wasn't too happy at first, but he went with her, and don't you know, 2 years later, he donated also.
That's
Didn't
amazing.
know
No,
that?
I did not
Yeah,
know that.
yeah, he donated 2 years later. Didn't go through her, because she writes freelance stories about medical stuff.
I share all that story all the time and had no idea you were the recipient.
Oh, yeah, of Janice, yeah. And she gets a package in the mail, because he worked from home, from the National Kidney Foundation. She's like, and it's addressed to my husband, because she calls me and says, are you sitting down? I went, yeah, why? And she goes, Kevin's gonna donate a kidney. And I went, I'm sorry, what? You're Kevin? She goes, yeah, and he didn't tell me first. And I'm like, I don't wanna be at your house.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. Yeah, I think you never know like who you're gonna impact. Someone's gonna see you go through your journey, and that's gonna encourage them, or that's gonna motivate them to look into it. And and a lot of benefits actually came out of me donating. Actually throughout the process, it was interesting. I wasn't sure if I was going through that, like if God had me going through the process because I was actually supposed to donate a kidney, or I had this sense like I was gonna uncover a health issue. It ended up being a twofer. So I ended up being healthy enough to donate, but they discovered a 6.5-inch mass in my abdomen. It wasn't cancerous, but like they discovered it, and I was able to get it taken out before it created complications, and it would have been hard to figure out what it was. So yeah, it actually ended up being a really big benefit and blessing to me. So you do never know. Yeah.
But if you go through the testing, you will find
You
out.
will find out.
Any other questions
is the timing? Do they call the person that's gonna receive it and say, okay, you got 2 hours or you got an hour? How does that work?
For me, they told me they would try and give me at least 2 weeks notice. But they said sometimes people get like 3 days notice. Because of my circumstances and that I couldn't donate for a year, they asked me to give them they always ask people, the donors, to choose a 3-week time period that they can donate within. So I gave them that like a year ahead of time, my first available, and they scheduled like the very first date. They let me know a month ahead of time. So I think the more notice they have from the donor, like the more notice they can give them and the recipient, but I don't think they want to make a recipient wait so long. So even though they knew I was going to donate and I was approved, like they weren't going to get a match for me early, tell that person you've got a kidney, and then make them wait a full year to receive it because circumstances change. So I think about a month is the max, but I think it can be just a couple days, right?
It can be just a couple of days, but yeah, usually you're exactly right, Stacy. They reach out to that living donor, get dates that are good for them in about a 3-week period, and then they're able to provide that date. But they definitely don't typically schedule them a year out because so many things can change.
I don't need a microphone.
Oh, yes,
I'm
you
loud
do.
enough. No, I was just gonna ask, so because of your circumstances, was it different? So like, if I was to donate to my brother, we would just pick a date, right? Like it's different? Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
yours would be scheduled if it's a direct donation to your brother.
Okay, gotcha.
Any other questions for Stacy? All right, well, thank you again, Stacy, for sharing your story, for being here.